Hello everyone. Today I will be watching a video called How the New Right Conquered Libertarianism. Mm, let's start.
If you're a Gen Z right-winger, you've probably had the libertarian phase. We all did. But now chances are you've become more authoritarian.
Well, uh, I'm not more authoritarian right now, but I certainly have noticed such trends in some of my friends.
How did that happen? The libertarian slogan is, "Don't tread on me," a call to be left alone. But what happens when someone does anyway? When not just individuals, not just the state, but an entire global elite violates the non-aggression principle, especially in such covert and ruthlessly effective ways as today. Should libertarianism be "don't tread on me, pretty please"? Or should it be "don't tread on me or else"? Your answer to that question is what set you on the path to the new right.
Yes, that actually the problem which I noticed too, in a sense that libertarianism never had, I'd say, proper principles of self-defense. Um, well, okay, some of the branches might have, yeah, but in general, um, there is no clear prescription what you need to do in a situation when somebody else have violated the non-aggression principle against you. If you are getting attacked on the street by some robber, most libertarians agree that yeah, it's moral to use force against him. I guess at least some amount of force. Mm, there might be even disagreement already here how much force is justified, but it kind of become more difficult when you are living essentially under some tyrannical government. In this situation, I think we need to go to a more go back to a more fundamental principle, which is what's in your best interest. Of course, ideally, you shouldn't just live there. You should just find another place, right, to maybe escape it if you can't fight it. Um, but if you have no such option, if you already live in US, and it's kind of one of the best places anyway, the only place where you have First and Second Amendment, more or less, how you should fight, when you should resort to violence. It's not very clear. As you can see, the founding fathers literally overthrew the tyrannical government at some point. Was they wrong? Um, I would say, yeah, in most cases, it's not in your benefit to actually challenge the state with violence alone. It's always more beneficial trying to sway more people on your side and win the election or something like this. Um, yeah, but that's certainly one of the contributing factors and the reason why we have uh, all sorts of political violence and potentially why we have this rise of authoritarianism.
Because once you try to actually defend your rights, you realize something harsh. You, alone, can do nothing against a coordinated multi-state actor that doesn't play by your rules. The libertarian boogeyman was always the state, but to defend yourself against the leviathan of globalism, you've realized you must wield the state as a tool.
Well, yeah, that's another common problem. Many libertarians, they grew like um, explicitly this anti-governmental views, right? Uh, with some simplification, we could say that a lot of libertarians just kind of subscribe to the slogan, "Oh, the government is just the problem, and the state is just bad," and it kind of implies that we need to kind of get rid of it. But that's just not very clear what it actually means. Uh, you still need some form of self-defense, right? You need to defend your rights in the most effective way. And if you start thinking about it, that's how the founding fathers invented the current system. That's how they come up with the idea of constitutional republic. well, it wasn't just them. I mean, it was people before them, right? All the Enlightenment led to it. And most of libertarians, when they're not properly equipped with this ideological base, they haven't thought about it, and they were kind of in a state of mind where they recognized government as a problem, and when they realized at some point that it's kind of meaningless in the current situation, that you can't defend your right effectively without the government, they just kind of embraced like the first possible form of government which comes in mind in this kind of situation when you're fully in the state of anger, frustration, where you're being constantly attacked, which is authoritarianism. So it's like they kind of forgot about the fact that the founding fathers already built those principles of proper government for them, or they just kind of rejected them because they think that the idea of constitutional republic itself has failed, because that's what happened in America. So I don't see it as, robust enough. So yeah, the kind of lack of proper ideological base is another problem of libertarianism. They kind of discount the power of ideas, and instead of advocating for them strongly and swaying people to their side, they kind of just resort to violence as soon as things don't go their way.
It's like the gun debate. The liberal fears guns because of what they can do in the wrong hands. But we know it's not the gun that's dangerous, it's the user. Power is the same. It's a tool, neither moral nor immoral. Its stance is dependent on the wielder. Sure, power corrupts, that's a fair warning. But it's still better in our hands than in the hands of those who want to destroy us. Some libertarians love to say that we don't need a state, that private defense and mutual agreements can protect us from the Leviathan. Alright then, go ahead. Establish your libertarian societies, what's stopping you? Oh, right, the Leviathan. The one that won't even let you build the tools you need to defend yourself from it.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was talking about. Many people from start just consider libertarian movement kind of impractical. So and now it's kind of getting less and less popular for the same reasons. I would say maybe unfortunately.
And so the new right was born when libertarians realized the threat of their own extinction, when we realized the stakes were too high to keep fearing power itself. It's not about abandoning principles, it's about proving them in real life, not just in online debate forums.
Well, yes, but one of the principles was non-initiation of violence, right? And that's usually what's getting abandoned first in this kind of authoritarian regimes. What happens with new right is they explicitly embrace initiation of violence against innocent people in some situations, and I will show you to you in the end, even in the JD Vance speech.
Marxism is said to be good in theory, bad in practice. That's nonsense. It's idiotic in theory and murderous in practice. But libertarianism actually is good in theory, which means if we want to test it in practice, we first need power to enforce it. Now the world order is collapsing, democracy is dying, and as Polybius wrote 2000 years ago, when democracies fall, monarchies rise. Every vulture is already circling the crown, so why not seize it for yourself?
Well, yes, so but in practice, this is usually the road to fascism. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, he's just saying here, portraying the king as just a protector from Marxists. Yeah, that's literally the figure which Hitler had become for Nazi Germany. That's literally how it worked. Mm. He's kind of forgetting that libertarianism, I mean, you say this, people who care about free markets and limited government, they're already a small portion of the whole population. And most of the people are already kind of soaked very deeply into this leftist propaganda. They already taught to blame all the failures of the existing system on capitalism. So when they reject it, it's unlikely they will go back to some sort of free markets. It's more likely they will, spiral into fascism. That will happen in the Weimar Republic.
Even if only to make sure no one else does. After all, some of the freest eras in history were ironically under monarchs, kings who had absolute power on paper but rarely used it. Compare that to our democracies today, limited on paper but in practice controlling every aspect of your life.
Well, he's making an attempt to portray this insane medieval obscurantism as some sort of paradise, similar to, by the way, to this Christian thinker, which I commented on before. I think it's clearly wrong.
The freer you want to be, the stronger not only you, but your family and your community and your people must be. And that's the final, undeniable logic. It's not a betrayal of libertarianism, it's the fulfillment of it. The old libertarian asks to be left alone. The new right demands it.
So I want to show you one more example, which kind of, highlight another mechanism of this transition, which I already kind of described. That people are taught to blame the failures of the current system on capitalism. If we think that goods and services actually have some objective value for our life, then free market would be the best tool to discover those values. However, the regulated market already doesn't serve this function as efficiently. And that makes a lot of people who hold these conservative values quite upset. But the answer which they give is not freedom. The answer is usually more state control, but just in the opposite direction. And we're gonna see it right here in the JD Vance speech. Just listen carefully how he makes the case against libertarianism.
But I think a first and preliminary step is that we have to distinguish between a conservative politics and a libertarian politics. I don't mean to stand up here and criticize libertarianism. I first learned about conservatism as an idea from Friedrich Hayek. I think The Road to the Serfdom is one of the best books that I've ever read.
You see, so he kind of clearly states his background. He mentions that he read Hayek. I mean, he's one of the strongest Austrian economists in history. So he clearly knows what he's talking about. At least he should be. But let's listen what kind of swayed his political views into more authoritarian direction.
About conservative thought. But in an important way, I believe that conservatives have outsourced our economic and domestic policy thinking to libertarians. And because that's such a loaded word, and because labels mean different things to different people, I want to define it as precisely as I can. So if you don't consider yourself a libertarian under this definition, I apologize, you can still use the label, but what I'm going after in my talk is this view that so long as public outcomes and social goods are produced by free individual choices, that we shouldn't be too concerned about what those goods ultimately produce. For example, in Silicon Valley,
well, at least we shouldn't use violence against those people. It's not justified to use violence against them.
It is common for neuroscientists to make much more at technology companies like Apple and Facebook, where I think they quite literally are making money addicting our children to devices and applications that warp their brain. They will make more money than neuroscientists who are trying to cure Alzheimer's. And I know a lot of libertarians will say, well, that is the consequence of free choices. That is the consequence of people buying and selling labor on an open market.
Well, yeah, you see, he's taking this example where he compares relatively free sector of economy, which is tech industry, with extremely highly regulated one, which is a healthcare industry. And he complained that the capital naturally flows out of the heavily regulated industry into the less regulated one. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to try to create the Alzheimer drug if all the incentives for it are getting destroyed by the government. If we know that as soon as this drug will be produced, its distribution will be heavily regulated or the profits will be nationalized. We certainly expect the whole crowd of leftists screaming left and right about how dare health insurance company charge this price for this life-saving drug and all sorts of hysteria like this. So yeah, it's unsurprisingly that people who try to make it are getting less money. That's one way to address his concern in this example. However, of course, there is deeper criticism in a sense that, well, he's upset with the state of affairs, who he is to force other people to do what he wants. If he's concerned about his own kids, well, he should parent them better. That's kind of the problem. I feel like conservatives are not the people who won't just leave you alone. And look, he is about to reveal his true nature here.
And so long as there isn't any government coercion in that relationship, we shouldn't be so concerned about it. But what I'm arguing is that conservatives should be concerned about it. We should be concerned that our economy is geared more towards the development of applications than curing terrible diseases. And we should care about a whole host of public goods in addition to that, and actually be willing to use politics and political power to accomplish some of those public goods.
And you see what his solution is. Basically, reject free markets and embrace some form of fascism, which is exercise of state power against people who you disagree with. Essentially, yeah, the initiation of force based on your ideology. That's what the translation of this phrase is into simple language. So I would say it's all very unfortunate. I don't know what the resolution will be in the end. I don't know whether we will be able to have some sort of Harvey Milei situation later. It's not clear whether libertarianism will ever have a revival in some sort of adequate practical sense.